the last event I had, Becoming Your Higher Self, and we had 93 people sign up to that event. It was an incredible event. So I'm going to be actually coaching people live on the event to help them break their false belief patterns and expand their mind and raise their consciousness in real time. I mean, it's for conscious coaches, leaders, and healers. And so when I use that term, I'm talking about people who are already in the process of raising their consciousness. They're not new to this idea. They've been, like you and I, they've been on this journey for a while. So this isn't theory. It's not a presentation. It's not a webinar. This is an interactive event. Sometimes say there are two types of people in the world. There are people that know they have trauma, and there are people that don't know they have trauma. The word trauma has gotten a bad rap almost. I mean, it's like it's treated as this negative thing that nobody wants to admit has happened to them. But really, in my perspective, trauma is how we get to our purpose. You know, I've worked with people who have been through serious sexual abuse, mental abuse, physical abuse, all spiritual abuse, you know, traumatized from religion and all sorts of things. And when they're able to get out of the victim mindset, in other words, when they're able to stop seeing it as something that happened to them and start seeing it as something that happened from them, for them, then they get to derive and extract the power from that experience. And then they can use that experience to actually increase their courage, because the depth of our pain is the height of our potential. And it's really a blessing once we understand what a gift it provides for us. They all make me who I am today. They all have created me to be this person that is able to hold space for others to heal. What I do with people is I help them go back and rewrite the story so that the event means something much more empowering than it did before. You know, if there are healers or coaches that are doing really great at what they do, but they want to get to the next level, they're going to learn the techniques, because when I do this work, I share the technique, I share why I'm doing it, what I'm doing, and how it works. And then if they're already a coach, if they're already a healer, and they want some more tools for the toolbox, I'm going to be practicing all sorts of tools. Everyone's welcome if they feel like if they conscious leader, coach, or healer. We're all leaders. It's just whether you're conscious to it. So if you identify as a conscious coach or leader or healer, then this event's for you.
Hello, today I'm talking with Ricky Goodall to discuss his new program that's happening here on April 13th called Taming the Untamed Ego. For those of you that don't know Ricky, he's a coach, speaker, performer, initiated shaman, ceremonial high magician, and mixed martial artist. And he's showcasing his unique skills through this new program where he's helping conscious coaches, leaders, and healers raise their consciousness and expand their own realm of infinite possibilities. Ricky, thanks so much for coming on the show. I want to welcome you today. How are you doing?
Yeah, thank you, brother. Yeah, it's really good to be here. I love when we get these opportunities to connect.
You got something really exciting here that I really want to share with the viewers. And I think if it's the right fit for people, they definitely need to attend this free event. Let's just dive right in. It's called the Taming of the Untamed Ego. And it's a free event happening on April 13th, a 3-hour event, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So
what is it? Who is it for?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So, I mean, it's for conscious coaches, leaders, and healers. And so when I use that term, I'm talking about people who are already in the process of raising their consciousness. They're not new to this idea. They've been, like you and I, they've been on this journey for a while, and they know what it means to start breaking their false belief patterns, how to start changing their limiting beliefs. And the trouble is they're getting stuck. They can't seem to quiet their busy mind. You know, they're getting stuck behind their negative thoughts. They're holding themselves back. They're procrastinating on their big dreams and goals, and they're just not really sure why they're stuck. And so this is a place that I've been in, and you know, sometimes I even catch myself there. I've got coaches and healers that help me when I get stuck. So I decided to host this event to really serve these people. These are my people. This is my tribe. And so the last event I had last month was called Becoming Your Higher Self, and we had 93 people sign up to that event. It was an incredible event, and it started out with some really powerful breath work. So I use a breathwork technique that kind of raises the frequency of the body to start releasing these molecules in the brain that create these almost psychedelic-like experiences. So we do that for about 15 minutes to start, and then we're just going to dive into some really deep coaching. So I'm going to be actually coaching people live on the event to help them break their false belief patterns and expand their mind and raise their consciousness in real time. So this isn't theory. It's not a presentation. It's not a webinar. This is an interactive event. So everyone there is going to interact with at least one other person while they're there. And they're going to see me taking maybe 10, 15 people through the process of breaking these false belief patterns and connecting to their own higher self.
That sounds amazing. I'm not going to lie. I've been through similar, events like that. And I've heard actually from one of our a friend of both of us. He was actually just talking about it yesterday. I noticed in one of the feeds and saying that he had attended, I think it was that event, George Falco, good friend of the show. And he said that he had watched and experienced you do this with other people and was completely blown away, like the power of what you actually were doing and helping people uncover these old belief systems that are really, they're hidden deep down inside of us as a protective mechanism, to keep us from that trauma, that pain of what we experienced. That's a great question I want to ask. Does everybody have trauma and pain, or do most people have it? I mean, because I have a lot of people that say, "Oh no, I've never had a bad thing happen to me in my life, and life's perfect." But I'm hesitant because it's like, really, there's got to be something there, or is that just a false belief of mine? Does everybody have some sort of trauma, or is it just the select few of us that get to experience the traumas and everything?
Yeah. I sometimes say there are two types of people in the world. There are people that know they have trauma, and there are people that don't know they have trauma. But everyone has experienced the trauma. It's the word trauma has gotten a bad rap almost. I mean, it's like it's treated as this negative thing that nobody wants to admit has happened to them. But really, in my perspective, trauma is how we get to our purpose. Because all of the challenges we go through, all the breakups, all the hardships, all of the painful childhood experiences, they mold us into becoming the warriors that we are, and they give us our talents and our gifts. They give us our on-the-job training to get to our mission and our purpose. So I see trauma as like, if you ever went to like Cub Scouts or Boy Scouts when you're younger, and they have those sashes and they have the badges, and you get a certain badge for achieving certain things. That's sort of like what a trauma is. Once we heal it, it's like we get this badge we get to wear about something that we've overcome. I've worked with people who have been through serious sexual abuse, mental abuse, physical abuse, all spiritual abuse, traumatized from religion and all sorts of things. And when they're able to get out of the victim mindset, in other words, when they're able to stop seeing it as something that happened to them and start seeing it as something that happened from them for them, then they get to derive and extract the power from that experience. And then they can use that experience to actually increase their courage. And so courage is necessary for us to take massive action in life. And trauma creates a lot of pain. But that versatility we get from experiencing that pain translates into courage once we heal the pain. Because the depth of our pain is the height of our potential. So when a person is able to really transmute their trauma, then they see it as something that happened for them. When they're able to see that, then they become super powerful. And so the people that want to believe that they've never been traumatized might not understand what it means to be traumatized, and that's normal, or not as normal, it's common, or they just don't want to admit that they've been traumatized. But really, there are two types of trauma. Gabor Mate says this. There are overt traumas and covert traumas. So for example, using COVID as an example, COVID was an overt trauma. We had this big thing that happened, but then it was a covert trauma. It was this low level stressful event that happened over time. Somebody gets abused by their mother once, really bad, so a child gets slapped in the mouth. That's an overt trauma. If a mother neglects the child through its whole childhood, that's a covert trauma. So overt is something that happens that's obvious. Covert is something that's not so obvious. It kind of runs under the surface. So we've all experienced one or both of these traumas. I think we've all experienced both of them at different times in our life, at different experiences. If a child falls and hurts their head, that's a trauma. If we get made fun of at school, that's a trauma. If we fail a math test, that's a trauma. Those things are low-level traumas, and at varying degrees that can create entire belief systems about who we are and what we believe about ourselves. And those belief systems go on to create our experience of reality. unconsciously.
I love how you outlined that and really explained it. You know, it's so true. Those core issues that we don't even know whether they're happening consciously or subconsciously, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
And those are what are sticking into our emotions. That's what's like deep seating inside of us. And that's what's causing our reality any second of any day, you know, when it's all what's triggering us from those, I think recognizing the triggers, right? When those deep, we may not have or know of those deep seated traumas that are there, but whenever we have a trigger, something sparks that emotional reaction, that's a pretty good sign that you've got some kind of trauma going on, right?
Yeah, unless you're completely enlightened and you never get triggered, then you have unhealed trauma, basically, in my opinion. That's just my perspective. But unless you're like totally enlightened, totally free, never get triggered, never, you know, you never get offended, then you've got trauma that's not healed. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. That just means you're human and you're going through an experience. And we all get to experience that. And it's really a blessing once we understand what a gift it provides for us. Because again, it's like all of the traumas I experienced in my life, and I had my fair share in my childhood and throughout my even in my adult years, they all make me who I am today. They all have created me to be this person that is able to hold space for others to heal. So I wouldn't trade any of it in the world. I don't want to go through it again, but I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. I'm grateful for those experiences.
I'm the same way. It's everything I've experienced. You know, I've had a great life, but I've had so many setbacks, so many traumas that I've suffered. But just like you said, I'm able to see the why behind nearly all of them. You know, or there's still some I'm working through. Sure, I think everybody does, unless you're Buddha or Jesus or that truly enlightened, you know, aspect. I think that's huge part of this program, this 3-day or 3-hour event you're doing. Talk about expanding your consciousness. And I think that's a new way of thinking, or that's maybe not a new way of thinking, but that's the way of thinking about trauma as it's a next step. It's part of our lesson. I think that's a big part of expanding our consciousness, is being able to see the trauma for what it was and to see how it happened for us and rewrite that story. Is that really what you're teaching?
Yeah. I mean, there are different philosophies out there where they just kind of get you to bypass the trauma and just like, you know, pretend it never happened. Imagine a different life, create yourself. And there's value in that. And I think the challenge in that is that you don't get to extract the power from it. Like when you can turn your victim story into a victor story, you know, when you turn your victim story into a story of the hero's journey, when you turn it into your hero's journey, then it becomes your on-the-job training. It becomes your prerequisite for this heroic life that you get to live. So it's almost like, I think it's almost a disservice to ourselves to ignore that part of our life and just pretend it never happened, because we've all experienced some degree of it. And when we're honest with ourselves about what happened, we get to connect with other people in a more vulnerable and authentic way, a more intimate way. And then we also, like I said, we get to extract our own power from it. So it makes us more human to admit that we've had these lives. And if you're born in this generation, you know, you've experienced 9/11, we experienced the trauma then. You know, we experienced the trauma in 2008 when there was a financial collapse. I don't even remember that happening personally, but a lot of people experienced the trauma. So, you know, these things happen and globally and in our communities and in our homes and in our schools. And, you know, if you've ever had a friend pass away or somebody got sick, these are all traumas. They're all traumas. And they're like those, I forget where it's from, whether it's Chinese or Japanese, but when they break a dish and then they repair it with gold, so that the dish actually becomes more valuable after it's been broken than because it's repaired with gold than before it was broken. So rather than seeing it as something that makes it less valuable, they repair it with gold so it becomes more valuable. So that's sort of the idea of trauma. It's like when we repair our trauma, we become more valuable as a result. When we ignore our trauma, it kind of holds us back. And by the way, I don't trauma necessarily while I'm doing the work.
Can you go back and say that? Start from when we ignore our trauma. You cut out real bad,
okay,
and I couldn't
thank you.
understand you.
Yeah, sure. No worries. Did you hear the part about the gold,
Yes,
and the,
yes, yes.
okay.
You just right when you said
Yeah.
when we ignore our traumas, it just went pixelated
Okay.
and couldn't hear you.
Okay, cool. Thanks for letting me know. When we ignore our traumas, we're just doing a disservice to ourselves. We're just missing out on these amazing opportunities that are there for us. And I don't really even like to use the word trauma. I like to call it a highly stimulating event. When
Hmm.
we experience an event that highly stimulates the nervous system, it's like a computer. Your computer got hit by lightning, it would short the computer out. It wouldn't work properly, maybe ever after that. You might be able to get it repaired, but it wouldn't work properly. Likewise, when our nervous system takes on too much stimulation, then short circuits happen. Memories get written the wrong way, and our nervous system gets misaligned and decombobulated or discombobulated. And so we have to process those highly stimulating events so that we can rewrite the programs back into meaning something different. So if I experience a highly stimulating event or a trauma, my mind writes a story about that trauma, which might not actually be true.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know what story got written because it was unconscious. So what I do with people is I help them go back and rewrite the story so that the event means something much more empowering than it did before. And if a person's wondering whether they have any of these events, are you living the life that you want? And if you're living your life the one that you want in every area of your life, then you're good right now. And you don't need to do any of this work. But you might next week hit a wall and realize, oh, what's going on here? I don't know why I can't get further ahead. Then this work is valuable for you, because what got us here won't get us there. What got us to right here is not going to get us to the next level. So the way of thinking won't take me to the next level of success in my life.
I love what you said about, extracting the power, extracting our power from these traumas. And when we experience them, they give us like superhuman strengths. And I think back as you're talking, I was thinking back to the couple. I've attempted suicide once for real, where I was minutes away. I woke up or I didn't wake up in the ICU. I was minutes away. I got saved in the ICU, from dying literally. But I can think of another time, I'm sitting there a couple times actually in my 20s and then again in my 30s with a loaded gun, staring at it, looking down the barrel of it, really contemplating everything and those emotions that were going through me and the feelings I was having. It made me remember how powerful those feelings were, those emotions. Thank God nothing happened from them, but I was so close, having those thoughts. And it just made me think about, God, if I could harness that power of that sadness, that emotion, that pain that I had, and harness it for good. I mean, I think that's exactly what you're talking about, is how to take those bad experiences with all that energy, all that emotion that's been misguided. It's been given the wrong story. And if we can figure out how to explode it and give it the right direction, right? Give it the right power as opposed to the wrong power, it has the ability to change everything, right?
Yeah, absolutely. When we have that energy available to us for our own use, and like you said, when we focus it like a bullet, it can pierce through any of our obstacles and any of our challenges and any of our fears. When we learn how to rewrite the story and recycle that energy, then it becomes something really powerful.
How do you convince people to dive back in or even just put their toes in the water of trying to remember, trying to put themselves back in these moments? For me, I've done enough work that there's very few, if any, moments I can't go back into and I'll be okay now. They used to really upset me, or I avoided them altogether because they were I was so fearful of them. They had so much power over me. How do you help people change their mindset that it's okay, that they're safe to try and go back and touch on those, try to reopen that can of worms that they buried for so many years out of the fear, out of the pain? How do you convince them that it's okay? How do they trust you to dive into that part of them?
Yeah, good question. So that word convince is important, because I never try to convince anyone of anything. I never try to convince them that they should do that. But the direct answer is I've been really fortunate to be trained by some very, very powerful, extraordinary healers who have taught me how to apply almost like an anesthetic. So I have a way of gently using different techniques, using compassion and empathy and permission to gently take a person there, even though their ego in psychology or in counseling or in coaching might not want to take them there. I have this ability to apply this sort of spiritual anesthetic that where we're kind of going hand in hand. We're walking there together. It's like, okay, we're here together. And we're not, it's not you when you were, 8 years old or you when you were 20, like we're going back to help that person. You and I are going back. You and I as the higher self, your higher self, my higher self, we're going back to help that person. So I have this way of sort of walking hand in hand with them and applying what I call like a spiritual anesthetic to help. So it doesn't hurt. Not to say there isn't pain that they face. It just doesn't feel like pain. It feels like, I got to use this example. Like if you got a really big fart and you got to let it out, it's like, it hurts more to hold it in. So once we get there, it hurts more for them to hold it in. So they just want to let it out. And whether they let it out through talking or through crying or through laughing or through screaming, they want to let it out. So what I do is I get them to get really clear on the story. So once we can let go of the story, then the pain comes out sort of by itself.
That's so important. I mean, you're there as their trusted guide, but I love how you said and I knew when I said it, I was like, oh, it's not about convincing. You said, I never convince anybody. And I knew I used the wrong word there. And I'm glad you brought that up, because in order to do this, it's never a matter of convincing anybody to do anything. You said a powerful word. You said permission. You get their permission to help them kind of journey together, which I think is beautiful. And it alleviates a lot of fear that people have. They don't want to go through this alone. That's a dark, scary place for most people. And the last thing they want to do is go into this dark, scary place alone as, like I said, a little 6-year-old, 8-year-old child. You're there kind of holding their hand, comforting them, reassuring them that story no longer has any power, that part of them is no longer real. It's only in their mind. So really understanding that, you go into people's minds. The metaphor. It's like you shrink yourself down into a little like teeny tiny version of Ricky, and you go straight into people's minds, and you're like guiding them through, like, oh, open this door, close that door. Let's see what's behind that door, right?
Yeah. Good point. And to expand on the permission, I call it enrollment. Where really it's about me enrolling them on the idea, and that can only happen when they're like, university, teachers don't come to your house and tell you need to come to university. You apply to university because you're enrolled in the idea already. So they need to be, if they show up, they're already enrolled in the idea of changing these parts of themselves. And so if I invite them to have an experience with me, again, it's permission, and I make sure that they feel really comfortable, and so that they're fully enrolled in the process. Because if they're not fully enrolled in it, the magic's not going to happen. If they're doing it against their will, it's not going to happen. The healing's not going to happen, or if it does, it's not going to happen the same way, or maybe it could even cause damage. So it's very important for me.
Yeah, they have to want this. It's
absolutely.
Not they can't be convinced of anything. They have to, through free will, one of the universal laws, they have to, through free will, accept this and say, I'm ready to tackle this portion, or I'm ready to at least open that door. What comes from it, they have to kind of let go and let God at that point, right? How have you put this 3-hour course together? You say it's an intensive 3-hour course. So what are you using? How are you compiling the course over just this short 3-hour time frame to maximize what people are going to get out of it? How are they going to untame their ego in 3 hours?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the truth is, some people in the event will experience a tremendous change. They'll experience a miraculous change in their life. Some people will just learn what needs to change, which is priceless. If you don't know what needs to change, and then you suddenly know, that's life-changing in itself. So rather than sitting there and teaching a bunch of content, which I've done before in the past, And even in my last event, there was some content. But what I've recognized is what's even more powerful than creating content is showing people, is giving them an experience of the work. I can tell them about the work. I can tell you how to make a cake, but it's not the same as that first bite that you take. That first bite cannot be explained by the ingredients. If I tell you all the ingredients of a cake and I tell you the directions on how to make the cake, that's not going to explain how it's going to taste when you put that first bite in your mouth. So the directions and the ingredients, that's for my program that launches later in April, the pilgrimage. That's a Become Your Higher Self Accelerator for conscious leaders. That's got the ingredients and the recipe. That's a deeper process. You and I have talked a bit about that. That's a longer process. This is more about, I'm going to give you an experience of why you should do this work, or why you could do this work, not should, but why you could do this work. I'm going to give people an experience of, like, here's in the last event, we had this woman. She couldn't have a relation or a conversation story with her mother without being triggered. It wasn't possible.
Right.
Just couldn't even do it. We had a conversation. It was only about 15 minutes long. I gave her an assignment to work on before the event. And we had a 15-minute conversation. And in 15 minutes, she was able to forgive her mother. And she told me after the event that she saw her mother and they were able to have an entire conversation for the first time, maybe in her adult life, without getting triggered.
Oh, that's fantastic.
15 minutes.
15 minutes.
So 15
Wow.
minutes. And that's not, it can be done quicker. I've seen some of my mentors take somebody through 5 minutes, or even one question, just one question, and the person's life changes. Because this stuff is working on another level. It's working on a higher level of consciousness. I'm not the one asking the question. I'm connecting to their higher self, and their higher self is telling me the question to ask them. So they're really asking themselves the question from a higher level of consciousness. I'm really just kind of channeling the question for them. I'm just reflecting back what they're not able to see because of the pain that they're trying to overcome. And I just want to be clear again, this isn't all about pain. If a person has a big dream and they have no idea how to make that dream come true, or if they've got a purpose, or if they've got this business they want to create and they just can't figure it out, we can change some things around, and they can suddenly have the strategy or have the game plan, or they can understand why they haven't taken action on it. It's all rooted around the same concepts of just getting into the subconscious and asking the subconscious, where do we go next? What's holding us back from the next level of awareness? And when we have that conversation with the subconscious tells us everything we need to know.
I think you made a really good point there. It's the idea of, regardless of where you're at on this journey, if you're just starting out and recognize that you've got some healing that needs to be done, or you're, like you said, at the point where you're trying to launch a business, or you want to know the next steps, but you're just you don't know where to go. I think you've designed this for where it can help anybody along, regardless of where they're at. It sounds like it can work on different levels, so to say, in this awakening process. I wrote it down because it made me think. It's like, on one aspect, for certain people, you're just opening the door for them. For other people, maybe the door's already been open, but they're just needing somebody to guide them to dip their toes in the water. Whereas other people, they can come to this event and they're knee deep. They just need to have somebody give them that little bit of encouragement to go ahead and dive all the way in. So you've designed this 3-hour intensive for really everybody, regardless of where they're at, novice, beginner, expert. We all have things that still need to be unlocked within us, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the bigger the person dreams, the bigger we can play. If a person's dream is to just get a different job, not that there's anything wrong with that, then sure, we can do that. If their dream is to change the whole world and improve the whole world, then we can make that happen too. So it's really, what I'm doing is I'm connecting to a higher consciousness, and I'm bringing them there too, so that we can draw down the blueprint of their authentic life, of the life that's going to bring them the most amount of joy, happiness, pleasure, fulfillment, bliss. We're going to a higher level of consciousness, pulling down the blueprint, and then clearing away what's in the subconscious that's holding them back from rising to that level of consciousness. An analogy I like to use is, if you imagine that you have a hot air balloon, and if the hot air balloon has a bunch of sandbags tied to it, and those sandbags are keeping the hot air balloon stuck on the ground, and there's fog everywhere. So you can't see anywhere. You can't see where you want to go at all because this hot air balloon is stuck to the ground. But if we cut those sandbags and allow the hot air balloon to float above the fog, then it's going to see the sun and it's going to be able to move out of that foggy area. So what I do is I cut the sandbags. I help them cut the sandbags that are keeping them in a low state of consciousness so they can rise above their problems and their challenges and see the horizon with clarity and be able to see exactly where they need and want to go in life.
This to me just sounds like a fantastic opportunity. Like you said, it's a free event, a free 3-hour event on April 13th. Looks like it's 4 to 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
That's right.
And so if you guys use the promo, there's a link in the description box of this interview here that you can sign up for free by just clicking on that link and putting in your email address, filling out the form, whatever, and then it'll get you all registered. Okay.
Exactly. Now spaces are limited. That's the only thing. That's why it's no cost, because I can only fit so many people into the event. So if they try to sign up and the link is broken, or they get an email and say, sorry, you're not in, that means you missed out. But if you go to that link and you put in your email address, it's going to send you the description of the event. It's going to send you the Zoom link to join. It's going to send you everything that you need to know in order to get into the event. But again, spaces are limited. So if they get this video the day before the event and they tried it doesn't work, then Joey and I are sorry. We tried to give you a heads up, but we did the best we can. But yeah, spaces are limited, but there's no cost to join. And there's no heavy sales pitches in the event. It's not like that. This is one of my ways of giving. I have other ways that I serve people that I share in my network, and you and I have shared some things, and we've got some exciting projects together coming up. So this is just my way of showing what I do and showing what our community can do, because this is an event for my community, the pilgrimage. They're all going to be there. At least a lot of those members are going to be there. They come to every event. And so for the last few months, I've been opening these events up to other people just to say, hey, this is possible for you. Mm-hmm. You can do this. You can change your life. You know, you and we've been talking for a while, Joey, and we've been through a lot in our lives. And you know, I want people to understand what's possible, because when you know that addiction and trauma and, you know, bad relationships and not talking to your family and not loving yourself and not doing what you love, like that can all be changed. We can rewrite the story. We can completely change our paradigm and change our experience of reality. It's not a woo-woo, you know, airy-fairy concept anymore. It's reality. It's true. It works. We've seen it. In the book, The Science of Getting Rich, Wallace Waddell says, if you can use a system and get consistent results, then it's science. It doesn't matter if science can prove it. If you do it and it works once, well, that means it works once. But if you do it and it works many, 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 many times, then it's science. Right. So just because our scientific system has no way of explaining these ideas yet, other than through, you know, vague theories, doesn't mean it doesn't work. It works. And so I just want to show people what's possible.
My first mentor always used to say that science is only the magic of today. You know, it's all magic. It's just, what do we call it? We call it science because it's been replicated over and over and over, but it's just the magic of today. And what we're discovering is this magic is our true magic. It's our true essence. It's our true creator power that lies within all of us, but we can't achieve it. We can't access it till we really learn to tame that ego, to get it under control, to remove the bullshit, the thoughts, the fears, the limitations that we impose on ourselves. We've got to get those out of the way in order to awaken to this true power. And I think you're doing such a service for humanity. You're such a service to your followers with programs like this, because you're giving people an ability to understand what's possible. You're opening the door for them for the next step. And I think that's really the most important thing we can do as guides along this journey, is to just open the door for people. So I don't see any reason why they shouldn't sign up for this. It's free. It's on an evening. You know, you should be home from work. This sounds like just what a great opportunity. Thank you for bringing this to the community. Thank you for sharing this with the world, Ricky.
Yeah, my pleasure. And I'll just say that, you know, if there are healers or coaches that are doing really great at what they do, but they want to get to the next level, they're going to learn the techniques, because when I do this work, I share the technique, I share why I'm doing it, what I'm doing, and how it works. So they're going to learn a couple of different breathwork techniques right in the beginning. They're going to experience this breathwork. And I'm not just talking about deep breathing. This is like powerful breathwork. And they'll be able to go and practice that for the rest of their life if they want to. And then if they're already a coach, if they're already a healer, and they want some more tools for their toolbox, I'm going to be practicing all sorts of tools. So they might not want to come and get healing. Maybe they don't want to come and do the deep work. They just want to watch, and that's okay too. Not everyone is going to get coached in the experience. Not everyone's going to get the opportunity to go through it, because I can get maybe 10 or 15 people, and we have a maximum amount of people of 100, and we've already signed up a pile of people. So I can't coach 100 people in a call, but I'm going to get as many people as I can. So not everyone's going to get coached. Some people might want to just come and learn. Or they might just want to come and say, hey, I think I already know this, and I want to see if this is the same as the way I do it. And maybe everything I do, maybe they already know how to do it. And it's just a confirmation for them. And that's okay too. So everyone's welcome if they feel like if they conscious leader, coach, or healer. We're all leaders. It's just whether you're conscious to it. So if you identify as a conscious coach or leader or healer, then this event's for you.
Fantastic. Hey, I look forward to the event. I definitely am grabbing my spot so that I'm one of the 100 and I don't miss out on it. And like I said before, everybody click on the link in the comment or the description box below, and that'll get you your access, secure your spot at the event, April 13th, 4 to 7 p.m. Eastern time with Ricky Goodall, Taming the Untamed Ego. Again, thank you, my brother. Thank you, my friend, for coming on, sharing this with the world. And I'm excited to see where we go next. Like I said, we got a lot of things in the works right now, and we've got the future's looking bright, my friend.
Yeah. And last thing, for those of you watching, if you watch to this point, give us a comment in the box. You got any questions? Is there any specific questions you want answered in this event? Or if you have any comments, or if there's anything you want to contribute, leave them in the comments section, and Joey or I will check them out, and we'll do our best to address them, or I'll do my best to address them in the event.
I love it. Yeah, absolutely. All right, Ricky. Well, thanks so much. Thanks for coming on, and we will talk to you soon. And nothing else, I'll see you on April 13th.
Sounds good, brother.
All right. Talk to you later. Bye.